in the beginning, we always thought, oh, and when we get here, then we're going to be done. And I can tell you, that's just never the case.
Why did you found Katulu?
It was actually a customer problem that we encountered in the field. We were working with one of the leading pump manufacturers of the world, and we discovered that there was a glass ceiling. So whenever they were approaching customers with a solution that was predicting when a pump would fail, they actually had an issue getting adoption traction with some of their larger key accounts. And really getting into those larger customers, that's something that you want. So you sell once and then you sell to many locations, for instance. And we were wondering why that was the case. So we found out that whenever you get to monitor data from pumps, you actually get access to the live, the blood of a factory, basically. You can tell whenever a factory stops. And now we've all been here during the pandemic, and all of a sudden we could hear there weren't enough supply, there were supply chain issues and there was not enough material, for instance, so they had to stop manufacturing, which impacts the value of a company basically immediately. So from a regulatory point of view, you're actually not even allowed to share such data with one of your suppliers. And that to us was intriguing. So we always come from, we have a problem and there must be a technology to solve this. And if there isn't, we need to invent this.
What problem does Katulu solve for companies?
What we've seen is that within the industry, there's a lot of data, there's automation in a lot of processes. So that means it's a good prerequisite for doing AI and using AI to drive processes. We can see in other parts of the world, so-called dark factories. We have very few of these here in Germany, but that basically means we need very little human intervention. And that is likely going to become the status quo at some point. So when we look at all these different companies, and there are some larger corporations and then also smaller ones, some German Mittelstand, leading hidden champions, really, they have a very good idea of how they can help their customers. But whenever they want to do so, offer an additional service, for instance, equipment as a service, which is when you provide a machine and you bill them for a service that you provide, for instance, the output, they need data from others. And we found this glass ceiling there too. There's a reluctance to share data amongst each other, which of course comes down to protecting your IP. I mean, let's face it, a lot of us, we have invested decades into building and growing such a company. So no one is going to serve that data up on a tab. Well, yeah, just like that for you. So we found a mechanism whenever we need to collaborate, and that is very often the case with AI. We all know it needs a lot of data. When we collaborate, we make sure that we turn this mechanism around. We do not centralize data in a location where the AI runs, but instead we take the AI and we deploy it directly at the data. And that's where it works. And that way we can guarantee very tight control of what happens to such data.
What are the biggest challenges concerning AI for you?
We all always assume AI is so free and can just travel wherever. This is not really the case. If you have factories in several countries, it can be that you're not always allowed to centralize the data. For instance, there is dual use regulation, and that means that even though you might have all the data in-house that can help you to produce the almost perfect quality and really improve your yield as we measure it at the end of the process, you're not allowed, from a legal perspective, to bring this data together in one pot. And whilst we were at it, we also found out that with up to 2,000 terabytes of data produced in a modern factory, it's also not a good idea for our planet. I mean, if you imagine, a larger manufacturing company will likely have 50, sometimes more plants around the world. If you centralized all that data, we don't have enough capacity already. We have everyone racing to build, new sources of energy, and then cloud centers, which really are compute kind of in buildings, not based in the cloud, but actually on the ground. And that's where all the data should flow. So we found out that by not centralizing data, we can, in some cases, get down the data transferred into the cloud to 0.1%. And that's, of course, also something that you can see on your bills.
You have a trick for dealing with setbacks when founding a startup?
Entrepreneurs, we all have had that experience of things going terribly wrong. And this is not necessarily something that you will find on social media. I feel that the discourse has changed a little bit in this regard. So there are more people talking more openly about this. But really, when you're in a crisis, make sure that you have a couple of people, kind of like special people that you bookmark on your phone that you can call for advice. Because that's actually something that I find intriguing within this area. I've never been in an environment where people have been so supportive. Like from the outside, sometimes you can think that it's a bit of an elbow mentality, but really more experienced founders, they're very eager to help younger founders, because we all know we need to grow this from the university up, basically. And if you don't have a network initially, at universities very often, for instance, where a lot of founders start their journeys, there are incubators. Also external incubators. For instance, here in Hamburg, we have the AI Hamburg network that you can turn to. So there really is a great network to support.
What's been your best moment with Katulu so far?
Giving a keynote together with SAP and Bosch at the Bosch Connected World last year.
And what's been your worst moment?
The first time an employee resigned. That's always a tough one, and it never gets easier.
Times are uncertain and confusing. As an entrepreneur and a mom, how do you deal with this?
That's, I think, a crucial point, even for us as a society, to look at our comfort zone and also to realize, to have the awareness that there is such a thing as a comfort zone, because everything else is being created by us. I think a lot of inspiration we can gather from children, how they engage with their environments, and falling and getting up again and learning from mistakes is the attitude that we have as well. I feel that sometimes in Germany, in our society here, making mistakes is seen as something bad. I would argue that they have been my greatest learning opportunities. So although it doesn't feel good when we make mistakes, at the same time, they teach us so much. And that really starts with small steps. I think we cannot boil the ocean. We cannot target everyone at the same time. But nothing great ever came from sitting on our couch, I think. So it's really about action and not only watching change happen. So it's really finding this motivation in ourselves again, this drive that we want to be part of this transformation. I see that within with certain groups, but the rest of the society also needs to be a part of this. Because at the end of the day, if we don't adopt new technologies that are also made in Europe, for instance, we're really going to lose out. We can see a lot of progress being achieved in the US, in China, and we can also see now with leadership changes in some regions that it all comes down to protecting our values as a society. So helping each other, collaboration, and really showing more courage when it's difficult. And not being afraid to fall, because you can get up again.